We're at the appointed time. Welcome to the March 11th, 2026 Bar Lords meeting in the public meeting room at 2 George Street. My name is Trey Watkins, and I'll be serving as the chairman this afternoon. The other board members present this afternoon are Luda Subchuck, Seton Brown, Joel Trantham, and Jay White. Jay is recusing on item B7, which is the 274 Calhoun Street project. City staff present are Edie Wortham Galvin, the city architect, Lawrence Courtney, our staff architect, and Brad Thomas, the staff architectural planner. Applicants have been required to submit any documents in advance of the meeting. Staff will control the slide presentation that includes everything submitted by the applicant by the deadline in accordance with the submittal requirements. Is the clicker working now?
I think it is.
All right. At your discretion, you can try the clicker, but it's up there. If you need help, applicants simply need to ask staff to advance to the next slide during the presentation. Applicants, staff, and board members are required to give their name when speaking. This meeting is being recorded and live streamed to the City of Charleston public meeting channel on YouTube. Your appearance here is your consent to be recorded. The order of the meeting will be as follows. First, we'll start with an introduction and overview of the project by city staff to the board and for the public. Next is the applicant's presentation. There is a 10-minute time limit, or as determined by the chair, and with any questions of the applicant by the board or staff. Any and all presenters should clearly state their name for the record. Persons affiliated with the project, whether that be owners, developers, designers, consultants, etc., should speak during this portion rather than the public comment. Our next section is public comment. All applications are part of a public meeting. Written public comments were due by noon the day prior to the meeting, and any received comments have been transmitted to and considered by our board. Written comments will not be read aloud during the meeting unless requested by a member of the board and with permission of the chair. Any member of the public who wishes to be heard in person on an agenda item at this time is requested to state their name and address for the record, and to be reminded there is a 2-minute time limit for those remarks unless extended by the chair. Applicant does not respond to comments made during the public comment portion. Next, we'll have the city staff comments and recommendations. The applicant response or clarification to the public comments and city staff comments and recommendations follows. This response time has a 5-minute time limit, and the applicant does not have to use the applicant response period if they do not feel it is necessary. Then we'll have our board discussion and vote. At this point, the applicant presentation is over and public comment is closed. The applicant may clarify inaccurate information when recognized by the chair by raising a hand and waiting to be called upon. Board members will be polled by the chairperson for comments and for their vote on a motion. The chair shall reread a motion verbatim, and the board member making the motion should correct the chair if he has not reread the motion accurately. Once the motion is in proper order and seconded, each member when voting should respond yay in favor or nay not in favor. Our results will be posted on the city website at www.charleston-sc.gov/bar. Tonight we have an item that has been withdrawn or deferred. That's item B4. That's the southeastern corner of Radcliffe Street and St. Philip Street, and it was withdrawn by the applicant. We have received public comment on item B3 at 280 Meeting Street. We have been 5 comments submitted on that. As a reminder, please turn off all cell phones and other potential disruptive devices. Please limit your comments to architecture only. Comments related to zoning, such as parking, traffic, and lot coverage, as well as livability department concerns, are not within the purview of this board and cannot be voiced here. All right. So thank you all for being here. We are going to review the minutes from our February 23rd, 2026 meeting. You all had a chance to review those, and if so, is there a motion?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Right. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, Mr. Trent, are you good?
Yay in favor.
Brown,
Yay in favor.
Subchuck,
Yay in favor.
Mr. White.
And I will recuse.
Mr. White's recusing. I'm also yay in favor. The minutes are approved. All right, that takes us to the first application, which is 649 King Street. Go ahead.
649 King Street is new construction in the Old and Historic District, and they are requesting approval of a mock-up panel. Be ready for after the presentation.
Thank you. My name is Dylan Towton, LSRP architect of the project, here representing our client Greystar. Wanted to say we appreciate the board staff and appreciate society's time today reviewing mock-up out here. This is the fourth mock-up of this series out here for Curtis Square Phase 2 on the northern half. So we're really excited to be here at this point. Lots of great comments and discussions out there. I know a couple things we pointed out specifically here on this sheet as items that don't exist on the building that existed on the mock-up just due to the nature of these things being created. Mainly with alignments was the biggest thing that, again, alignments don't occur in the actual building they're shown on here. And then one item that we did want to point out that we talked about on site the other day that through the process of the mock-up we found needed further refinement was really the FRP cornice, the horizontal portions. We found through the process that the jointing between two did not seam out the way that we were hoping it would, and would like to further review that obviously with the staff and with the contractor as we try to correct those. So that was something that, as we saw them go up, found that we could rework and make them tighter joints and less obvious between the two. Other than that, we appreciated all the feedback that we got on the site. I don't think there was anything that we saw that was a major concern from our standpoint, but we really appreciate any feedback or comments that you guys have. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Any questions by the board? Any public comment on this? All right, city staff, comments and recommendations, please.
Sure. Much of the building's ornamentality lies in its brick detailing and is generally acceptable. One exception is that the mortar joints in places appear excessive, especially at the bed and inside corner. This is partially due to the irregular edges of the brick and the closeness of the mortar to the face of the brick. The applicant should make a sample panel with the mortar recessed. It is also noted that while the porch mock-up section will never intersect the brick on the building, some of the things that the applicant just noted, as it does in the mock-up, the brackets will. It was discussed whether a sealant was needed here. It was determined that the joint was too tight for any sealant except at the black brick band, where a dark sealant could be placed around a quarter inside the edge of the bracket to visually disappear. It is noted that the GFRP cornice and frieze are of too light a thickness and not anchored at close enough intervals to present a smooth and consistent look. The applicant is aware of this and is already working towards a resolution involving thicker material and tighter anchorage spacing. The dryer vent cap shown could be a better match to the brick and mortar, but this can be worked out in the field with staff. It is understood that the vertical muntins on the window sample will be the thinner profile of the sample placed directly below the window on site. The smaller sample matches the drawings much better. It is understood that the drain from the canopy is to be much closer to the face of the wall, or may even incorporate a small gutter to address water falling onto the sidewalk. The light to medium gray sealant color is preferred, although a color a little darker would be better to match the window frame color. The precast color is best represented by the keystone form at the head of the window to the north, with the cast still exhibiting an unwanted swirling pattern. And it's understood that the inset marble diamond form will have distinct corners. We have 3 staff conditions. 1, a small sample panel is to be built to explore how the excessive mortar at the bed joints and inside corners might be best addressed, to be reviewed by staff. 2, a thicker GRFP profile with more closely spaced anchoring points is required, to be reviewed by staff. And 3, applicant is to explore finding a slightly darker sealant color for the windows. Recommendation is mock-up approval with board and staff comments and conditions.
Thank you. Any response?
No, we appreciate the feedback and we agree with it.
All right, thank you so much. All right, let's move into our board discussion. More motions.
I think I'd just like to say thank you, staff, for encompassing all of the comments that were made on site. Every single thing that I brought in here to say has already been said and addressed, so that makes our job easy from my end. If anybody else has anything they'd like to add.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, appreciate y'all getting all that in here. With that, I'm happy to take a motion though. Somebody like to make one.
I'll make a motion for the mock-up approval with board and staff comments and conditions.
I'll second that.
So a motion by Mr. Trantham is a mock-up approval with board and staff comments and conditions. It's been seconded by Mr. White. Mr. Trantham, how do you vote?
Yay in favor?
Mr. Brown?
Yay in favor.
Ms. Upchuck?
Yeah, in favor.
Mr. White? Yay in favor. I'm also yay in favor. Motion passes. Thank you. All right. That takes us to agenda item number 2, 18 Society Street, or 320 East Bay Street.
Applicant, this address is in the old and historic district. It dates from the early 1970s, and they are requesting full demolition of 2 buildings which do share a property wall, hence the addresses, a single TMS. This is the location that you can see on the left, and on the right is the historic aerial from 1973 showing that it in fact meet the 50-year historic definition. And now we're ready for applicant presentation.
Okay, my name's Brian Hill and I'm with Deco Demolition. Was contracted to demolish these 2 buildings down to the slab, leaving the slabs and everything intact, no hardscape removal or anything. No plans for redevelopment at this time, just trying to, it's 2 empty buildings, we're just trying to bring down and make the area safe. All I got.
Yeah, thank you very much. That might be all we need.
Yeah.
Thanks so much. All right, any questions from the board before we step down? All right.
We do have photos if anybody
Yeah.
wants them to be shown for the public record.
Oh, I'm familiar with it.
Yeah, we know. it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you so much. Any public comment? All right, city staff, comments and recommendations, please.
Absolutely. The ordinance offers criteria for reviewing demolition requests in the old and historic district, asking the BAR to consider, among other things, the historic architectural and aesthetic features of the structure, the nature and character of the surrounding area, the historic or culturally important use of such structure, and the importance to the city. Both structures, connected by a party wall, show up on historic aerials in 1973, but not earlier. Therefore, the structures are older than 50 years old and technically considered historic. The architectural features are modest. The structures do not significantly contribute to the nature and character of the architectural fabric on either street and do not contribute to the lively urban realm. Staff are not aware of any cultural significance related to the structures. Staff recommendation, staff do not oppose demolition of the 2 structures.
Great, thank you. Assuming no response, but this is your chance. No response. All right. Moving into board discussion. Any comments from the board?
It's hard to argue with that.
I guess we have to find the 4 points, but I think staff defined them pretty much for us that are here. I mean, they while they are 50 years old, you know, there are not architectural features that I think warrant saving. It doesn't contribute to the streetscape in any meaningful way that we saw. I didn't see any cultural value when we were on site, and it's not rated, and didn't see that it was part of the architectural heritage of the city. So I think all 4 points have been met, in my opinion.
Thank you, Mr. Trent. I would agree with you as well, all 4 points.
I'll introduce a motion for approval of demolition.
Of
Of
both
demolition,
structures.
of
Yeah.
both structures.
So on the table is a motion to approve demolition of the 2 structures. Mr. White.
I will second.
All right, thank you. So Chuck. All right, Mr. Trent, how do you vote?
Yay in favor?
Mr. Brown,
Yay in favor.
Ms. Upchuck,
Yeah, in favor.
Mr. White.
Yay in favor.
I'm also yay in favor. Motion passes. All right, item number 3, 280 Meeting Street.
280 Meeting Street is not rated and dates from both 1918 and 1952 in the old and historic district. An applicant is requesting conceptual approval of adaptive reuse with an additional story on an existing building and a separate duplex structure. Lawrence is going to show us the location. And then we're ready for applicant presentation.
Hey, everybody, I'm Eddie Bello with Bello Garris Architects. You might remember that I brought this building to the board back in October for demolition. I remember it. It was quite the event. This is a separate project, completely different client, different approach. What we're asking for, as BD said, is to renovate the building, alter it to allow for residences and then add a one-story addition and then the attic. Next slide, or can you do the, you want me to try it? Does it work? Yeah.
Who does it, then you broke it.
All right, so just a refresher on the history. So the original building was built in 1918. It was a warehouse building. That's the two-story part. It was a warehouse where they sold farm equipment for a long time. And then in the late 40s, early 50s, 1951, it was completely renovated to be an automobile dealership. And this is right here. They added that one-story addition, completely changed the front facade, put stucco on, put these large steel windows, took out all the original windows, put new steel windows in, basically changed the entire building at that time. And then that was also when they added this garage in the back. The garage was approved for demolition. So here's the site. A couple things I know we don't need to talk about zoning too much, but two important things about zoning, I think, I want to bring up. One is this site is zoned. This is going to be residential for sale units. The zone for 13 units. We're putting 7 on the site. But more importantly, this is in a 4-story and 3-story district where the front of the property can be 4 stories. This is an old photo, but this really large building that's to our north, that's 4 stories on the street. We're allowed to have 4 and then 3 for the rest. And we're only going to have 3. Just think that's important to point out. Okay, so you know the building. Again, those steel windows are long gone. This was added again in 1951. This is the north side. It's been altered a good bit. This is kind of an interesting view because it shows where our townhouses will go in the back, pretty far back there. It also shows the new building, which is very large and kind of massive to our north. The top 2 photos, the one on the left is the north wall. A lot of alterations over the years, garage doors added, stairs, windows cut in, taken out, blocked up. The very back, the east, is this one here. That's not visible at all from the BAR's point of view, but just the same thing. It's been altered over the years. The 2 photos in the bottom of the garage, it's already been approved for demolition. Just some more views showing how the building works on the streetscape. It's pretty interesting how it's already set back a good bit from the other buildings. So it's a good bit smaller too. Okay, so this is the existing site plan. Just the key thing here is to point out the garage we're removing and then this 1-story addition that was added to the building in the late 40s. This is just an enlarged demolition plan of the ground floor. And then here is the proposed. So I'll go through the building in a minute, but we're not changing the footprint of the existing building. New building back here, it's a 3-story duplex, pool amenity with a garden kind of wall back there. We're still got a lot of design on that, but that's sort of how it all lays out. The enlarged floor plan. So a couple things to point out here. So we're of course using the existing building. It is almost on the south property line. So we can't have any openings. These are existing windows that are there now. We can't have any openings on that side. So the way we have to lay out the building is we put all of the core stuff on this side, the stair and the elevators. We can't have openings. You want natural light in these units. So that means everything else is on the north side and east and west. We need to put some cars in there. It's interesting because there used to be cars in there when they renovated. We've got a townhouse, 2-story townhouse in the back and an amenity in the front. The entrance is right here. That's existing 2nd floor demolition proposed. At the far right, that's the other half, the top floor of the townhouse, 2 more units. The existing roof demolition. And then the 3rd floor, which we are pushing back, there's 2 more units. We're pushing back from the parapet. All 4 sides, we are withdrawn from the parapet and then we push back in some other areas too. roof plan. We'll have our mechanical on the roof. I don't think you'll see it. If you do, we'll screen it. So for inspiration, obviously it's pretty easy. This is what the building looked like. It's the only photograph we have of the building. This is what it looked like in 1952. And so this is let's just do that. So that's what we decided to do. For the building in the back, which is honestly not all that visible, we consider that more part of Ansonboro. So we looked more to Ansonboro for inspiration. We'll have garden walls and things. These are just some Ansonboro photos, but a lot of brick. Our building in the back is going to be brick, good brick detailing, simple form, fired by the wrought iron that's all over Ansonboro. You've heard me say stuff before. So that's really what the townhouse building in the back is going to be. Okay, so here's the view. So I guess the key things are we brought back the windows. One sort of minor thing, there's an entrance there now. Originally there was not. So we're bringing even this one-story addition, which was deemed historic back in October, is being completely restored. And then we have a new third floor addition, which we set back. It's a different material, and we feel like it recedes, and you can still see easily the form of the historic building. This is straight on shot. And again, I think to me, the big takeaway is you clearly read the historic building and then the new addition. And I think it's great. We're bringing back the kind of the best this building's probably ever looked in the 50s. I mean that in a nice way. Just the pure elevations existing and proposed. These are large windows. I think they're 16 feet across by 10 feet high. Streetscape, which is, a little unusual for an existing building, but just to show, we're well within. And of course, this is set back. This is set back a good 20-something feet. You get to our existing masonry building, and then our building's even further back from that new addition. So some other views. This is just looking south. You come down, meeting, and again, the issue here is just it shows clearly you can read the form of the whole building with our new addition. North side, like I was saying, the north facade has been altered a great deal over time. So we're continuing the language that we sort of inherited from that 1950s look and bringing that around the whole building. The south is largely covered up. Again, you can see where the outlines of the buildings are next to us that are very close. So it's pretty minimally visible. We're electing to leave it alone. It's the only part of the building that doesn't have any paint on it. So we'll probably just repair the brick that's there and just sort of leave it alone and not do much. We didn't want to have any windows anyway, even if we could. We didn't want to have windows there because we didn't want to have windows so close to the adjacent property owner. This is the east, the back. It's not visible from public right away, but just to give you an idea of the fact that we're adding a porch. Again, continuing that language that works on the rest of the building. Building section, because this is required, it shows ceiling heights and everything. This view is mostly just to orient you to where the townhouse is. So just to walk you around the back. Again, this will be pretty minimally visible. You'll see probably the corner of this. We've got some work to do on the wall, but you get the idea there's going to be a garden wall there. This looks really washed out in white, but the idea is there would be a kind of a tan brick with a lot of brick detail. Here's the elevations. And then just another beautiful floor plans. And you'll never see this from a VAR point of view, but just to give you an idea how. So we're using steel. So for the existing building, we pretty much have to use steel where we're adding, these tiny little balconies and porches. It didn't make any sense to use any other material. So we carried that over to this building. So we softened it. We've got eased edges and some sort of graceful curves. So it doesn't feel industrial as the two buildings together. Another view again, we just have this. It's not really a VAR issue, but and building section. Pipe section. Shows how far back that building is in the back. So I think it's at least 200 feet back. It's definitely over 150. Last view. So, I guess in summary, we're asking for approval, as we always are, but you know, we've got the existing building. This is metal panels. The goal was to be subordinate and respect the old building. And hope you agree. Any questions?
Right, thank you. Yeah, any questions from the board? No?
Quick, I think back in October, we talked about the structural integrity of the second floor. Is that resolved? I guess.
When we took it for demolition, again, totally different client. I'm the only sort of constant. Structural integrity was never part of the reason for demolition. There was never or Russell Rosen is our engineer for this project. So he's working through whatever structural we've got on. Honestly, it's not an issue where most of it's going to be inside.
Great.
Quick question for you too. Was the decision to continue the glazing pattern from the masonry mass to the penthouse intentional as like a unifying element? Or did you study any alternatives to changing the glazing type as you switched from one element to the other?
No, it was intentional. Part of the reason we want to differentiate, but we don't want it to be, you can imagine, it's kind of hard to tie these two together, right? So we wanted a consistency with the windows to do that. We got different material, different proportions, but it was intentional to kind of keep the windows in.
And then one other question, I think on the south side, there was obviously an intention not to include those windows, but as you step to the penthouse, by maintaining that zero lot line rather than insetting, also continued that inability to add glazing on the south side. Were there any studies to incorporate glazing or change the form at the penthouse in order to allow for that? Or what was your thought process?
Well, we could have done that on the front. You know, we've got, if you put, we've got our stairs and our elevator along that wall, so that can't move. If we took this is quick as fast as I can. If we moved the other walls in, then we wouldn't have that symmetry that we're trying to get. Sorry, I thought it would be. I'll stop at this one. So this can't change, right? If we do, it screws up the whole building. We could move this in and have a window there, then you're looking over this property, which we didn't really like. But also, again, really the key is we want these to align. I mean, it's back to your question about the windows. A lot going on, so we thought it'd be nice if everything sort of worked out really perfectly on that one elevation for as perfectly as we can get it on that one east west elevation. There's the straight on. Right, we like the idea of following that symmetry.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bella. Any public comment?
I'm Catherine Alexander with the Preservation Society of Charleston. We are thrilled to see this proposal for adaptive reuse emerge from a former demolition request, and we commend the board for upholding your charge back in the fall to protect Charleston's historic districts. This is a case study of the design review process working as intended as a forum for constructive public dialogue, and this is the community's desired outcome that they asked for in the fall. And so the Preservation Society is pleased to offer our support for this rehabilitation and reuse. At a conceptual level, we appreciate that this proposal maintains the building's original form and character, draws on historic documentation to restore the front elevation, and that the new buildings at the rear are designed sensitively to respect the historic building. While vertical additions to historic structures are not always the most sensitive solution, this proposal reflects thoughtful trade-offs to enable rehabilitation. As the design progresses, however, we encourage the applicant to study increasing the setback of the third floor addition from the existing meeting street parapet to reduce its visual impact on the historic structure. And this would be an appropriate balance, particularly given the minimal relief proposed on the north and south elevations. With these comments, we offer our support for conceptual approval. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Kate Dutilly, Historic Charleston Foundation. HCF supports this proposal for the adaptive reuse of 280 Meeting Street. While we would request that the third floor addition be set back further to reduce its visibility from the street, we are generally supportive of the architectural direction. We would also appreciate the removal of the roof terrace above that one-story section of the building. As policy, HCF does not support roof decks visible from the public right-of-way. With these changes in mind, the proposal does adhere to restore many of the character-defining features the building had previously lost. HCF recommends conceptual approval of this application. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Any other further public comment? All right. Moving to city staff comments and recommendations, please.
Sure. The applicant received approval from the board for the demolition of the rear garage structure on October 8th, 2025. At the same meeting related to the request for demolition of the primary structures, the board noted that the primary building, quote, contributes to the established urban fabric and varied architecture of Meeting Street, and its form is still identifiable. Staff affirmed that the applicant's proposal maintains the integrity of the historic forms so that they are easily legible. Staff support the height, scale, and mass of the third story proposal. The architectural direction of the third story addition provides a clear distinction from the historic structure with the use of aluminum siding, while also complementing it nicely. In the renders, the cornice and parapet appear to dominate and interfere visually with the historic structure and the character-defining form of its parapet. Staff require restudy to further reduce the addition's visual impact to the historic parapet. The proposed duplex to the rear of the structure is minimally visible from the public right-of-way. The material choices and composition of the duplex work well in the context. Staff support the height, scale, mass, and architectural direction of the rear duplex. And any pool requires a separate permit that would not be part of this approval. Having a lot of pool confusion coming through the permits and yes. Staff conditions, 1, restudy of cornice and parapet on the third story addition to reduce prominence, and staff recommend conceptual approval with board and staff comments and conditions.
Right, thanks so much. Any response?
Yes,
Please.
I would agree. So I'll start with the easy one, which is the study of the cornice and parapet. We talked with city staff and agree it's something simple enough to study. Our story is, the building needs a top, and so how do I get to a picture of our building? Just leaving that. It needs a top. The balance is how much is too much for the existing buildings. We got to study that. So I think that makes good sense. As far as pushing the building back, first of all, thank you to meet with preservation groups. Always value their opinion, although I respectfully disagree on this one. I think part of it, you got to look at the big picture. We are restoring this building. Look what we're doing to this front facade, right? We're bringing this building back. We have already pushed the top back. It's already 10 feet back here. It's over 6 on the sides. I would argue that we can keep pushing it back, but right now you can read the form very well. And it's not supposed to matter, but the more we push it back, I think you're not going to gain that much. I see the form, I do, very clearly on this building. Pushing it back another couple of feet, all that does is take away from our program and using the building. And so I would ask the board to not require it to be pushed back. And then as far as the railing, I understand, I didn't know that that was something that was always a concern. There's not much outdoor space for these tenants, and we pulled the railing back, so it's a relatively small terrace, and it's a low impact up there. It's not up on the edge. We can study pushing that back a little more, but we would rather not. So, responses.
Right, thank you. All right, moving on to board discussion.
I'll just briefly say I think it's a great pivot for the project, as Preservation Society noted. And I do think that there is a way to give the building a top, but a more minimalist one. And I have no doubt that can be discovered on the way to preliminary review.
I agree, and I guess even before reading this staff notes, I felt uncomfortable about that eyebrow or the cornice. It also looks much larger on perspectives than on elevations. But so I agree, it needs to be studied somehow. As far as the pushing back, I think, again, if the cornice will be resolved and we have a, different material, different color, it's already gives that perspective of suburbia.
Subordination. That one.
So I think it works, that's fine. And actually the railing about that small brick structure, it gives a little bit more substance and presence because it's so squashed. So it's more proportionally in relation to the rest of the building. And very quickly about the two duplexes, I really like them. They're very elegant, simple, and this dynamic squish of the curved floor of the balcony is interesting and is interesting. That's about it.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I'll share. First off, I love that you included the VW bug on the slide. Yeah, that's let's hope you. What's that?
It's going to it, not driving away.
Just a few notes. The Juliet balcony is on the north elevation. I'm not sure if they add to the elevation at all. If they're not going to be functional, then they're certainly not historic. So I would encourage a restudy of that. At preliminary, I'd like to see the renderings of the building from the southern elevation looking north, so that I get a better understanding of what the pedestrian experience is going to be like going north along Meeting Street. I think this is a great example of adapting a historic structure. To think that we may not have had this, a year ago, it's cool to see that there's an opportunity to see it stick around. The pushing back, I understand to staff's point of view, or to staff's point on the cornice and parapet seeming to dominate on A22. The pedestrian experience going south, it definitely conflicts with one another. So whether that's pushing back or a redevelopment of the cornice, I don't know, but leave it to the experts. And then finally, the railing on the first or the one level addition. I know that if that's going to be programmatic space, that there must be some sort of zoning requirement that would need something there. But anything to mitigate that, to make it not look like a rooftop deck, I think would be.
Obviously, we're here looking at the architectural direction, height, scale, and mass, and I think architectural direction is spot on, 100%. I think that the penthouse design strategy separates the architectural language and of the upper story from the historic building below. And I know we talked about the iconic form of that building, and it allows it to be read. And I think the amount that the penthouse is set back allows that parapet to read as it did. So I'm comfortable with how far it's set back. I don't have an issue with the height either. I think the thing that I'm kind of sitting on a little bit is kind of the mass, which I think is contributing a little bit to the scale of the parapet, especially at the north and the south elevations. Because that parapet steps back down on those sides, and because of the way that the cornice is reading, the penthouse is reading a little top heavy, especially on either one of those elevations. Now, it's mitigated by the amount of setback that the applicant has already given to that top. And but I wonder if there's a way, whether it's through the window strategy, is it a different change? Is it a redefinition of the parapet at the sides, what you still allow the form to be red that is historic? Is there a way to bring that line up that plays with the proportions of the penthouse and the glazing to kind of bring down a little bit of how top heavy it's reading on those? Because I do think, especially to Mr. Brown's point, it's going to be fairly visible on that south elevation with the solid wall, no articulation, and I understand the reasons behind that, but if there's a way to kind of mitigate some of that mass, and it might be that the redevelopment of the cornice helps solve that issue for me. But I think those were kind of the areas that I was seeing, but I think in terms of the general direction, I feel like it's ready to go to preliminary with some of the comments that we've got here.
Because the south wall right now is already solid, it's just a little bit more of the height is.
Yeah,
going to-
but it does have the brick texture, which is different than the stucco on the other side. I mean, it has a few elements in being 2 stories versus 3 stories, and just this cleanness of the metal panels as they're running down that side and their dark nature, it reads as, and again, it is mitigated by the building to the south that you can see in this view right here. So I take that into account whenever I look at that. And the applicant is insetting it very slightly to allow the parapet to be red, but it is a solid blank wall with minimal texture development to it. And so we don't have a great perspective view of that, but in elevation, it reads as long.
All right, thank you all very much. You any prepared to make a motion?
I'll introduce a motion for conceptual approval. With board and staff comments and conditions.
All right. It's a motion by Mr. White for conceptual approval with board staff comments and conditions. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, Mr. Brown seconds it. Mr. Trantham, how do you vote?
Yay in favor.
Mr. Brown,
Yay in favor.
Ms. Sobchak,
Yeah, okay.
Mr. White.
Yay in favor.
I'm also yay in favor. The motion passes. All right, item number 4 was withdrawn, so that takes us to item number 5, 649 meetings.
649 Meeting Street is a Category 1 building from 1897. It's in the Historic Corridor District as well as a landmark overlay, also known as the Trolley Barn. They are requesting conceptual approval of an addition to the Category 1 building. Lawrence is going to show us the location. And then we're ready for our presentation.
Good evening, members of the board. Mr. Chairman, I know I have 10 minutes. I might require a few extra minutes, but I
No
have a
problem.
few more.
I can give you an additional 10, but just keep it where you can.
Probably won't use them, but
Fair enough.
thanks so much.
Sure.
I also want to, before I start, thank city staff, both Ms. Wortham Galvin and Mr. Courtney for your help getting to this point. So thank you very much. You're very easy to work with. I'm joined here this evening by General Colby Broadwater, President of the American College of Building Arts, Mr. Stephen Botcher, our Chairman of the Board, and Mr. Robert DeMarco, also one of our board members who is emeritus of this board tonight. I'm also joined by Professor Iris Howe, one of our stone carving professors, and 2 of my architecture students, Cameron Smith and Edward Grant. So my name is Sasha Rosen, architect, principal of my own firm, chair of the classical architecture department at the American College of the Building Arts, also campus architect and director of the Institute at the American College of Building Arts. So this is probably a little bit different of an application than you've reviewed. I'm guessing that you have not reviewed a classical facade like this, Corinthian Templar facade, this style in quite some time, if ever. But I'm excited to bring it to you. One of the things that makes this project unique is that the American College of Building Arts is the only 4-year college in the United States that is dedicated to both a liberal arts education as well as training in the classical building trades, such as blacksmithing, stone carving, timber framing, classical architecture, architectural carpentry, and plaster. So our mission is very important to us. Our campus is a working campus. If you come and visit us, which many of you have, you will see the display of many of the student projects throughout the building, both on the interior and the exterior. And I'll show a few photos of that. So to some degree, I believe that makes this application a little bit different, and I'll explain why. I also want to point out just on the facade here, as you can see, this is a project where the majority of it would be in a natural stone. We've been using a lot of Alabama limestone. It would be carved and erected by our students and faculty. The doors and windows would be fabricated by our architectural carpenters. The roof structure would be fabricated and installed by our timber framers. The blacksmiths would create some of the decorative ironwork that you see. And our plasterers would be doing a lot of plaster work on the interior and exterior. So for us, this is an exciting opportunity to really be building our own campus, to be displaying to this community here in Charleston, as well as visitors that we get nationally and internationally, what can actually be done to create beautiful architecture today in a classical tradition and using traditional building methods and materials. Unfortunately, I'm not able to be joined this evening by Professor Christina Butler, who did the historic report, which was submitted with the initial application. But I want to read, she's on vacation, much needed vacation now that we're on spring break this week. But if you will bear with me, I want to read just a couple of phrases from her introduction that I think sets the tone for our application and our approach. So Professor Butler wrote, the addition follows best practices in the following ways. It is recessed from the public right-of-way, and it is located on a secondary elevation. It follows the Secretary of the Interior standards, as it does not cause the historic building to be altered, with one minor exception that I'll point out, nor is the addition attached to or bearing load on the trolley barn, rendering it reversible. The addition defers to the trolley barn in height, scale, mass, and location. She further says, the proposed stone shop addition utilizes precedents from a non-extant car barn building that was located in the courtyard, constructed in 1918, lost after 1955, by incorporating and preserving the one extant feature, a rear brick wall, and by referencing the roof line of part of the lost building. The proposed addition is less than a quarter of the size of the former car barn, allowing to defer completely to both the trolley barn and the neighboring north building car barn, which was adapted as an apartment house in 2024. So now I'll walk through the drawings and show how we got to that point. All right, here's a selection of photos from around the site. I want to point out this one first. That image is taken from the rear of the property, which is an extant building that was at the center of the property. If you look at this photo here, you can see the existing trolley barn in the center, which is our main campus. To the right is a former, also historic trolley barn that was approved in 2024, constructed in 2024 for a 6-story addition, 4 stories on top of the existing 2 stories, which were renovated. So those buildings are existing, and between the two of them is a courtyard. So the trolley barn is on the left, and the adjacent building is to the right. And we actually share that courtyard. The property line goes down the center. Okay. There's the SCRA building is to the left, a historic mattress factory. So the history of this site is industrial. So here's some historic photos of the building. And on the top left, you'll see the main trolley barn building that has been restored in 2014 and 2015. That is our main campus. On the left side of that, in that image, is a 3-story structure that was built in the early 1900s and was destroyed in a hurricane in, I believe, 1936. One story of that is left, which we currently occupy. The other two upper stories are gone. If you look at the photo on the bottom left, you can see a view from across Meeting Street to the southeast, across Meeting Street to the south side of the trolley barn, as well as the three-story kind of office addition in the front. Again, upper two stories no longer extant. On the top right, you see a photo again from across Meeting Street. A portion of the trolley barn is on the left side. On the right side is the the structure that was renovated for the apartment house that is to our north. It was one combined property. And at various times between those two were a series of different structures. On the bottom right, you'll see the Sanborn map from 1902. You can see at that point, between those two structures, the red being the trolley barn that we currently use as our campus, the north being the former car shed that is now the residential building. There's always been a courtyard, and at various times it had different things in it. In 1902, it had a well and a water tower. Subsequently to that, a small addition, again, for more storage of trolley cars was in that center section. So a lot of the history is in Professor Butler's report, but this structure is significant because it was one of the most important extant structures related to the use of trolley cars and the trolley system in Charleston. They used to run up and down Meeting Street, and this was a service and repair and power facility during the period that was used. Of course, the trolley car system was decommissioned in 1938. The building was largely unused for most of that time since then, except periodically by the power company. All right, so here's some of the fun images. And here's where I want to talk about two things. One is how to create an appropriate addition to a historic structure like this that that complies with the requirements for height, bulk, and massing, respect for the additional structure. And to some degree, I'd like to bifurcate the design of the front facade from that. Obviously, you can't make a decision or take a vote without combining those two, but conceptually, I'd like to think about that. The design that's proposed is essentially, although it doesn't look like it, is a veneer construction for the stone front facade. So whether this looked like a more industrial type of a building or a more ornamented building like this, the overall proposal for height, bulk, massing, and relationship of the new addition to the existing structure not change. But we could make the front look like whatever it needs to look like. On the bottom left, you can see kind of an aerial view of our existing campus from above and across Meeting Street. You can see the main campus. To the left is the one-story addition, used to be the three-story addition, where the upper two floors fell down. Right in the center, here you can see the existing kind of north wing. That's our office wing of the existing structure. And off the image to the right is the adjacent residential building. You can see there's a property line that goes right down the center that currently has that small retaining wall on it. The image on the upper left is the view from street level. Because of the configuration and the locations of the various buildings, as we'll see in a minute in the plan, there's a small stretch of Meeting Street from which you can actually see back into the courtyard and see the proposed facade of the new addition, but that's a very small stretch. And I'll walk you through that in the plan. On the top right is a close-up as if you're in the courtyard. There's an existing courtyard between the two buildings. We're gonna put we have half of it, the neighbor has the other half. We're putting the addition in approximately the rear half of our side of the courtyard. And we'll be redoing the courtyard as well. Again, the facade will be designed and constructed by our stone carving students and the department, and the paving will be installed by them as well. On the bottom right is an image taken, an aerial view from the rear of the property. You can see the existing car barn here with an existing historic addition here. And then here is a wall that is referred to by Professor Butler in her report. This is an existing exterior wall for what was a shed down the center of the courtyard. Now, please note that there's a peaked roof here in the center. That's right along the property line. So American College of Building Arts owns only one half of this property from sort of the center point to the face of the trolley barn here. This is owned by the adjacent property. Also want to point out the slope of this line, which is the top of that extant brick wall at the rear of the property. And that is the wall, that is the line that we're using to guide the pitch and height of the proposed roof of the new addition. So, the new addition here, that roof would align exactly with this. I have surveyors going out there this week actually to make sure that we know exactly where all those critical points are. This is actually the best image also to show the general configuration of this building. The point of this building is as a stone carving workshop. I'll show you some photos of some of the interiors of our shops, which preserves the industrial use of the site overall. It's a long building, a double height for the back half of it. The front part of it has some tool storage and workrooms. And then on the second floor, a small apartment for visiting professors and guests of the college, not commercial use. Along here, you can see a clear story window that is similar to the existing clear story window on the trolley barn. And that's to let in some beautiful natural light for our students in their stone department. You can see that is pulled back from the interior lot line. This is a lot line condition, which is why we have no fenestration openings on this north facade of the addition, and why we've also pulled the roof lantern back so the clear story windows can have the necessary fire separation distance from the property line.
We give you a warning, you have about 5 minutes left with the extension.
With the extension?
Yeah.
Okay, here's a few photos of our students at work. You can see the nature of the interior spaces. Here's the existing site plan. Here's the existing college with the property line, neighboring building to the north. Here's the proposed addition, taking the existing courtyard, and we're putting the addition approximately in the back half of it, aligning with that extant rear brick wall. So existing first floor, you can see the shaded portion is the existing building and the addition. One thing to point out, this is an egress door from this building. So we have to provide a new interior exit access corridor here that preserves the overall functioning of the existing building. On the second floor, we're providing a residential unit, and here is the one small sort of intervention on the existing building. There's an existing window there that I can show you. We're providing a handicapped access to the second floor so that handicapped users can get access for our main elevator. Roof structures, detailed plans. Here's our street elevation of Meeting Street. Here's the proposed addition that's primarily hidden behind the existing front of the north wing of our existing building. much smaller and deferential to both our building as well as the neighboring building. Our front and rear facades. At the top, the existing conditions, the bottom, proposed conditions. Looks like this line slipped, but the roof will be aligning with the silhouette of the existing rear structure. And you won't see much from the back. This doesn't change because we're actually setting that rear facade back from the existing or the proposed rear wall back, so you won't see anything. On the north facade, this is the existing north facade. Here's our proposed north facade. The reason this is essentially bare is because it's on a lot line, so we can't have any openings there at all. So it'll be a plaster finish over concrete block. But it did take a section, a longitudinal section through our building, and you can see here we'll be exposing almost all of the existing north facade of the trolley barn. And here's our front facade. Two options. This would be a much more typical approach to a project like this, slightly industrial. It ties in with the renovated front facade of the trolley barn, as well as the renovation to the existing building to the north. So we keep almost the exact same language of the renovations from 2015 and 2024. However, this is a unique opportunity, again, for the American College of Building Arts, through both its stone departments, all the other trade departments, and the Department of Classical Architecture, to show what could be done through the mission of the college. Our last one.
1 minute left. Yeah, thank you.
Sure. So just two things. Here's a section. You can see it's deferential to the existing. The clear story is similar to what is proposed. It takes advantage of the north light. And one last thing, the residential unit on the second floor, we're providing an access door again for handicap use. On the exterior, we'd actually align that proposed opening with an existing historic opening. There's a photo from the outside. Here's a photo from the inside. We would actually use the same jam lines and go in to remove that brick. We're going to need to address that anyway, because we already have in that exact location some separation in the brick. And that's really the only intervention into the historic structure. And that concludes my presentation.
Great, thank you so much. From the board, do you all have any questions at this time?
Yeah, one question. So you have two facade options for that east facade. Is the ambition with option one that this would be built by the students and then someday rebuilt by the students, or is it just going to be built and this is the final?
Let me go to the larger one. We would like this to be built by the students.
Okay.
Now we've had a couple of options. One could be every few years when we get a new crop of students, we could take it down and rebuild it, or build a different version. That would truly make it kind of an educational experience. But let's start with once.
Very disruptive in the future, isn't it? If you will have to rebuild and rebuild.
Well, that is the one beauty of veneer construction. So as different from historic construction, obviously, right, where the fabric of that facade would be integral with the structure. This is an opportunity where we can build a structure, occupy it, and then the students can continue to build it over time. In fact, I've had a lot of conversations with Professor Kincannon, the head of our department, and he would love to see students actually carving this in situ. So we might lay a lot of these stones as raw stones, unformed, and then the students would be out there on scaffolding, carving it. This would be a great opportunity for us to show, again, visitors from all over the world at Charleston, how some of the great buildings in the United States from late 19th and early 20th century were actually built.
I'm not sure your donor name would like that so much, the reoccurring name.
Well, it depends how much that donor gives.
I have a administrative question, I guess. Is there a licensed contractor for this project?
So, yeah, we don't have a contract signed yet, but I'm working with Artist Construction. Guyton Ash is one of the principals of Artist and a graduate of ACBA. And we want to make sure that we have a general contractor that's willing to work with our students and departments to kind of integrate the design. And that's why I'm spending a lot of time on the design process as well, making sure that that each individual component is sort of keyed with our academic program. So we're not asking students to do things that are beyond their skills or that are not actually teaching exercises. The last thing that we want to do is disrupt students' education by asking them to do something that's not what we would have wanted to teach them in the first place. So we're working with artists and they're willing to coordinate that process.
Under this option, what's the proposal, how it connects to the historic building?
So there would be a sealant joint there. So the existing masonry wall would continue and literally everything is outboard. The only, well, we'd have a small intervention that we have a gutter off the side of the building. We would actually interrupt that. Other than the sloped roof lantern, we have a generally flat roof here. And I'm working on various details for how to connect that. But other than that, we're literally just abutting the structure with the front facade. And again, as I showed on the elevation, much of that existing north facade of the trolley barn will just be exposed on the interior. So students will be carving stone and looking at the side of the structure.
So how exactly this veneer works?
So the structural wall would be a masonry backup wall. So we would be able to construct, it'll be a 12-inch thick CMU wall based on the height of the structure. So we would build that. It'll have the masonry openings. We would weatherproof that, which is typical on the front face of the backup wall. And all of this is just, minimum 4-inch thick for the thinnest parts. And other parts obviously will project much further, but that would be a completely independent veneer wall, just like every other masonry wall that gets built, since about 1980.
So I guess back to in 2 years rebuilding this, you demolish the veneer and where's your windows, where is your I mean that apartment suddenly is open?
No, if you remove the veneer on almost every building that's designed and constructed today, if you remove that front veneer, the weatherproofing barrier and all the insulation and everything else is fully intact. So in fact, there's a lot of buildings that have been built poorly, right? So there's the building that is just north of the bridge that the masonry is being renovated, right? It's being redone because I think they must be having leaking. So you can actually remove sections of masonry from the veneer wall and everything else is still intact, meets code, and no fire issues. So that's not ideal for most buildings, but we would be designing this to have that capability. Now, again, this may be so beautiful that we don't ever want to take it down. And we'll find other things for our students to do, but that's sort of a theoretical problem.
I have a question for you too. It appears that the case for option 1 for student built educational opportunity could be included in either option 1 or option 2. Is there a reason why you see it couldn't be?
Well, we actually don't teach bricklaying. We teach stone carving. So, we may at some point in the future expand our offerings to, be the full, gamut of masonry trades. But that's not currently what we do.
I guess what I'm speaking about is an architectural direction for the addition that ties its language back to the building rather than being substantially differentiated from that. It could be done in a way that does draw inspiration in terms of the way some of the elements are incorporated. I mean, I think that there's inlays, there's things that the School of Building Arts is doing on Courier Square Phase 2. There are elements that could be inlaid in a brick system or something. There's educational opportunities to showcase the work of the School of the Building Arts within a style that pulls more from the language of a Category 1 building that it sits adjacent to. And so I'm trying to figure out why it's an either or is there a combination of the two in your mind?
Well, I'm so glad you asked that question. That's fantastic. And by the way, I've forgotten. So Professor Howe has brought a rock from actually that we've carved that it will be on the Courier Square project. Thank you, Edward. So it represents kind of some of the materiality that we might be considering, but it's a fantastic question. And you know, Professor Butler and I have discussed the Secretary of the Interior standards and talked about in detail, well, appropriate additions to a Category 1 structure should be differentiated, right? We've established that. You all have established that here. But what is the upper limit of that differentiation? And what is the appropriate level of differentiation? Clearly, a differentiation that does not respect the height, bulk, and massing, that's too much. But what is the right blend, right? So happy to entertain that conversation. Again, you know, our proposal is to use primarily stone. There's 2 small pieces of stone on the trolley bar now that are sort of plinth blocks of a steel lintel on the front facade, but other than that, there's no stone involved. Right? So, you know, is there a way to sort of replicate brick detailing in stone? Might be a little bit boring. You might as well just use brick. But there may be options. For us, what we would like to really explore is, once our students are out in the world, what could they really do? What is a sort of a theoretical, what is you know, a really groundbreaking kind of a project? And that's what we're proposing this. Classical architecture like this, Greek Revival, certainly neoclassical is part of the history of Charleston. You know, I've watched lots of popular films from the Institute of Classical Architecture and Art. That's one of the other, in addition to ACBA, one of the supporters of classical architecture around the country. And in most of their videos, they feature Charleston. And so this is really part and parcel of the history of our city.
Other question from you?
Yeah, I have another question too. I think a lot of the conversation today has related around what we call the veneer construction of this. And a lot of classical buildings are not necessarily veneer. I mean, some of the more successful classical buildings have depth and surround. And I think by locating the north wall of this on 0 property line doesn't allow for expression down, which if we're carving the beautiful stone where you typically do have a north wall, there could be much more expansive wall in order to incorporate some of these elements rather than in just a veneer. And so I guess I would have a question with the honesty of the construction as it's there. What's keeping you from just making this a separate element from the building if it's only a veneer?
It becomes very theatrical.
It's a stage is what it feels like. You know, I'm just curious. I'm curious, why does it need to be a part of the addition rather than a freestanding element if it's only a veneer?
I love these questions because this is a lot of my research. But I'll address the issue of a stage front. Actually, much classical architecture from Alberti and Serlio, some of the Renaissance classicists actually designed stage fronts. And so this actually ties in with the entire history of classical architecture from the Renaissance to early 20th century United States. So that's my answer to that portion of the question. The other question about veneer construction. One of the things I'm most interested in as an architect, and I've had pretty long career designing in a more contemporary or modern style, high-rise buildings and large complex projects. When you design today, you have to design for the times. You have to design according to construction methods, methodologies, codes that are appropriate and that govern today. It is, in fact, fairly difficult to design a facade like this that still complies with contemporary codes. But one of the things that I'm trying to teach my students is when you have clients, or if you're able to propose to clients that you design in a beautiful style like this, a traditional style, even classical style, but you need to meet contemporary codes and construction methodologies, how can you do that? And so that's actually part of the theoretical experiment here is, can we take a building like this and really make it look like one of the classic neoclassical buildings here in Charleston? And I have long lectures about little clues as to how you can tell if a building is a veneer or fully integrated construction, which I will not bore you with.
Yeah, we know.
Yes, too. One other question. I'm just curious your take on it. Standard 3 of the Secretary of the Interior talks about conjectural additions to buildings. And what, in your opinion, makes this not a conjectural addition to that building?
Well, in my mind, and I've looked a lot at Standard 3 as well, I mean, this is so different that there's no possible way this could ever have been one of the phases of a car barn, right? Now, if we did it in what would normally be a more typical approach to this, I think we'd be actually more at risk of potentially creating a false sense of history.
Yeah. But then I guess if you're trying to be so different, in looking at this elevation, the angled wall that's behind it, that is intended to be totally separate from this building, why pull on that wall that references back that might not be necessarily in form that you would find in classical design?
Well, broken pediments are certainly part of classical design, and this references the fact that originally there would have been, or there was, a structure that went all the way across from the face of our building to the face of the adjacent building. Now, we can't do that because we only own half of it. And so this is actually a way to reference a broken pediment in a way that is, both slightly ironic and tongue-in-cheek, also beautiful, but also directly references a historic vestige that we think should be acknowledged.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board? All right, thank you so much. Any public comment?
Teachers affiliates for Charleston Foundation. HCF supports this request for conceptual approval for an addition to the Category 1 building. While Category 1 buildings receive our highest level of scrutiny, we believe this proposal meets that standard. The project's strong educational component and the way the building will showcase the work and craftsmanship of the students make it particularly compelling. The proposed addition will serve as a working model of high-quality materials, traditional building technique, and thoughtful design as part of the American College of Building Art. And with that, we offer our support. Yeah.
And Catherine Alexander with the Preservation Society of Charleston. We really appreciate the college engaging us in this conversation. We also support the American College of the Building Arts efforts to engage students in the design and construction of facilities to meet the needs of a thriving program, employing the highest quality materials and craftsmanship. We appreciate the attention to reversibility with this proposal and retaining as much historic material as possible and engaging with the historic trolley barn. We look forward to seeing this project progress.
Any other public comment? Right. City staff comments and recommendations, please.
Sure. In addition to being a Category 1 structure, the trolley barn is also in the landmark overlay as it was used to house the city's first electric streetcars. This submittal is for an addition to the rear north wing of the trolley barn and site, and thus is limited in visibility to the northwest side of the property from Meeting Street. Relevant to this discussion of an addition to a Category 1 building is Charleston Standard Number 7. Additions or exterior alterations to historic property should be sympathetic to historic materials, features, and spatial relationships that characterize the property. The new work should be compatible with the historic materials, features, size, scale, proportion, and massing to protect the integrity of the property and its setting. To respect the authenticity of the structure and its context and setting, the new alterations or addition should be clearly discernible from the old. Differentiation may or may not be stylistic and may be as subtle as a change in building footprint, material, or other means. Staff support the applicant's attention to the existing historic wall to the rear and side of the trolley barn and their preservation and visibility within the interior of the proposed addition. At preliminary review, staff require a detail showing how this addition would be connected to the historic wall to make clear how the new addition is discernible from the historic structure. A more articulated joint or small hyphen would be required. Since you are all academics, I referenced Carlos Scarpa and Casavecchio, which wants a clear, discernible connection. While the BAR board and staff are generally a reactive body that does not entertain options, staff have made an exception in this case due to the unique situation offered by the applicant and potential impact on architectural dialogue within the city of Charleston. On sheet A320, the applicant chose a classical approach, option 1, or a new construction approach, option 2. Option 1 is meant to be didactic for the students and public as it would be built by the students enrolled in the ACBA, with the facade serving as a learning lab. Staff could support the classical facade in this option because of its role as an active learning structure, not a static mnemonic monument to classicism. To that end, staff would want to see the facade rebuilt over periods of time to be determined in a later stage of the proposal to emphasize that active role. Staff require a restudy of the broken pediment clerestory window. It is understood that it follows the angle of the existing historic wall to the rear of the property, but it conflicts with the understanding of the use of classical composition at the main facade of the addition. Option 2 would provide a more standard approach to new construction on the peninsula with its use of brick, precast concrete lintel, and a large aluminum window system complementing the architectural character of the trolley barn and its surrounding context. In either option, staff support the height, scale, and mass as it is subordinate to the trolley barn. So what follows are staff conditions that relate to the two different options, right? So if we're going with option 1, we would like a restudy of the broken pediment clerestory window, bring sample materials when it gets to preliminary review. At preliminary review, include a proposed process and timeline for student engagement in the building of the facade, as well as the timeline for potential rebuilding of the facade over time. So it can become a moment of discussion with the board. Also at preliminary review, the submittal must include details showing how the new addition will connect to the historic wall, right? Physical materials required. We're talking about option number 2, again, bringing sample materials to the review. You have to show the detail how it connects to the historic wall, and physical material samples are required. Now, our recommendation today is for deferral, but only because we want clarity from the board on which pathway we're going forward with. Option number 1 actually does reflect a full package. So if you're going that way, you might consider that as a conceptual approval with a bunch of conditions about what you would want to see preliminary that might fall out of a standard preliminary package. Option number 2 only has the 1 sheet, so really would require a new submittal that is full and shows that in its completeness. So know that our deferral is more because this is a unique situation. And we are comfortable with a conceptual approval if the board is comfortable as well with conditioning processes and things they want to see.
Okay, thank you. Any response from the applicant? Great, thank you. We'll move into board discussion now. So, this is a different one for us. So I think we'll have to talk about it, a little bit. I guess initially I'd like for us to maybe have a discussion about the 2 different styles and sort of where we think we can go with this.
Well, I don't think that the options really represent a choice in architectural style. It's more about how you're going to use this thing. I remember when the student housing came before the board discussed at that time, 2015, I think. Well, is there any way to employ the trades that the school teaches in the construction of this thing? Of course, that didn't happen. So I think to employ those trades and even the students themselves in the construction of this little addition makes a whole heck of a lot of sense. And while the idea of this being something that might be, built and then rebuilt over time as the school marches on, and that's really quite a romantic idea, but I struggle to believe that it's likely to happen because of the resources that are going to go into doing that. If you were going to do that, and even if you were going to adopt the language of option one, I think some as showed up in BD's comments, some sort of separation between that facade and not only the existing trolley barn, but the rest of this addition would be called for so that it stands on its own more clearly. If you just have that front facade in this motif and then you turn the corner, it's just plain old brick addition or what have you, then future versions of us are just going to think, well, you ran out of money. And so if you're going to do option one, I think either option, I think we're looking at because we've got sort of a lot of things out here. I think if you do option one, I agree with staff comments, and I think option two, you'd still have to reconsider the massing, because while I understand where that single sawtooth comes from and that angle being related to the angle of the remaining rear wall, that's just simply not legible at Beating Street. That angle clear story does not work proportionally or compositionally with either option.
So again, there's so much emphasis on that rear wall, so why not this facade as a half of the wall altogether, and rather than full facade of classical palace. And it's true for the option two as well. It's kind of
So this is we know that this is a veneer that is being built as a veneer. This is not unlike 363 King Street and the veneer that survived after the hardware store fire. It's not unlike the Bluestein building at King and Mary, that the veneer is different than what is along the sides of it. What's unique here is that it's going to be quite literally a learning laboratory that just happens to be outside, which is the only reason we're talking about it. And I think that a lot of our questions earlier were getting into the pedagogy of what you're doing. That shouldn't be the case here. It's really, looking at the structure and what fits here. So at least as it relates to option one, you look at the precedents of the Greek revival through E.B. White on campus at the College of Charleston and throughout the city as well. And it is deferential to the rest of the building in a 19th century industrial building. The only reason why I would defer is to say choose one of option one and option two. I don't really think that we are prescriptive in that sense, but as it relates to the pedagogy of this and that, I should take a step back.
Yeah, the most dangerous thing about presenting two options to this board is you will end up with a combination of the worst attributes of both. Yeah. That's why I think a deferral is so important, so the college can decide based on this discussion which direction we go.
I think we also need to consider the option one is that, we have that paragraph from, what is that? Stanford 7. It's supposed to be complementary to existing, and it's so different.
Yeah, and so is the modern addition onto the Old Communications Museum at George and St. Philip Street. Completely different.
Are you saying you can go backwards?
Exactly. You can go backwards. You don't have to go forward. And especially understanding the context of you know, the American College of the Building Arts and the palette that you're using. I mean, that's what should be highlighted in the structure.
I guess where I look at it too, and trying to understand option one in terms of how it sits is I actually have a deep respect for classical architecture, for the way that the proportions and relationships orient the way that they come. And if this was coming as a freestanding building that was designed in the round, I mean, I'm sure I could be fully supportive of everything that's here, but I'm also trying to sit this in context of a Category 1 building. And obviously, the trolley barn is much larger in scale, but it derives a lot of, I think, the reason why it is a Category 1 building is it has an honesty to the tectonic uses of the way the material was constructed and utilized in the structure. And so the brick you see on the outside is the load-bearing brick. It's the clear story, the way the light is brought in, the way that they're not high materials, but what brings the value to that structure is some of the character in which it's used. And so when I look at a building next to it that utilizes, you know, beautiful forms, materials, but in such a different way, I would almost want to see it embody the best principles of classical architecture that could be there, but it's not. It's a facade, it's a stage. And I understand that a stage has been used, but in Charleston, typically, I mean, to see a utilitarian structure, a stage, and then a utilitarian side, without the rest of that building being able to be incorporated in it, to me, kind of, just to Mr. White's initial comment here, can kind of cheapen some of the relationship that's there. And I think that we have to take into account that this is sitting next to a Category 1 building. And so I also think that there is a pattern of development in Charleston, whether it's Federal, Queen Anne, you know, Greek Revival, of ornamentation at a primary structure and simplification at accessory structure. That derived out of use and need. That the way that that worked was that the utilitarian buildings were to the back, they were subordinate, they were reduced in their ornamentation. And one of the things that we're doing here is that we're taking a simplified Category 1 structure and then adding an ornamented addition that calls a lot of attention to itself. And so I think that's a particular question that I think if we look at option one, we should be grappling with. Or is it, you know, is option two using a similar palette of materials that will work with the existing materials that sit there, and typically how we would look at a Category 1 building. And I think those are the items that I'm weighing out as I try to kind of reason through the different options that are here.
Is there any way this board can help or provide any further comments in terms of the options, ones that we could get behind or not get behind?
Well, I think,
Well, that's our job.
yeah, I think we can't really like pick one.
Yeah.
You know, there's only been a few cases over the, you know, decade plus that I've been on the board that this has happened. And it never really goes all that well if we pick one, because we're imposing a lot. And then every single board member that says, yeah, option one or yeah, option two, whichever option comes back, they're going to come preloaded with assumptions about how option one or two are going to be developed. And those assumptions are not going to be articulated tonight, and they won't be met probably preliminary. So I think the best thing for the American College of Building Arts is to hear this dialogue, understanding that Mr. Trantham is concerned about the option one being of a higher style and more exuberant than the building it's supposed to be subordinate to, understanding that there's been other board members that have stated that they're not really sure that constructing and reconstructing and constructing and reconstructing a veneer on an occupied building is all that good of an idea long term. Understanding that there's been articulation that if you pick a different stylistic direction, you need to differentiate. You need to be very aware of what the BAR's guidelines say, and they were quoted in staff comments because they're valid. But I think the most important thing to understand is that it is, well, it's very important for everybody in the room to understand that nobody here is advocating against an architectural style. That's a frequent, actually, it's a decades-long criticism lobbed at this board, and it's never been true. We don't have stylistic agendas, despite what people might be inclined to believe. The more you believe that, the less likely it is that you've ever sat in this room. So I think if the college wants to pursue option one, whether or not it's to be reconstructed potentially at some point in the future, that's good, but come in and take this dialogue into consideration as it comes back. And it'll come back, having been deferred, for another conceptual approval. If you do option two, I think your pathway is going to be a lot simpler because you're doing what's more typical. You're just simply following a very common pattern of subordinated, similar yet distinct additions that have happened all over the city for generations. I really don't know which one the college should pick, even if I was required to tell you.
Option three.
And Mr. Wright, just as a point,
Yeah,
I don't think that we should be considering the cadence of how often they would construct something or demolish something.
yeah, I think
That should be removed from the consideration.
well, the only reason that I think it's worth discussing is because it might have some bearing in how it gets built. Although if they say we intend to rebuild this, there is no way that we could ever demand that happen at any point in the future. If this thing's going to be reversible, I meant to say this earlier, and it's sort of an aside now, but if this thing is intended to be reversible, it's not going to be structurally tied to the trolley farm. You're going to have a building joint there, and you might as well express it. This came up on Cannon Street last year. So yeah, but I agree. I actually think that it's a pretty long shot that this thing would ever get reconstructed. You know, so it's not really a primary consideration for us.
It's definitely a unique opportunity. You know, y'all as an applicant, I think, are in a very unique spot with skills and the buildings that y'all have. So it's interesting to see both of the options.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion for deferral to restudy one singular pathway option with board and staff comments
Which option?
and conditions to identify one pathway.
I agree with that, but just quick discussion. There is one more card you can play. You can withdraw it right now. And then there's been no motion made. You've heard all this dialogue, seen staff's comments, but you're not coming back in here having ridden through a deferral. To the extent that makes any difference to you, it is something that you can do. It's not like you're going to get a harder time when you come back next time, deferral or not. Sorry,
Agree that.
No, that's
yeah.
I mean, what it affects is the public record, because then you just say, but on that.
Yeah. Oh.
Should we offer a short recess?
Yeah, let's
Yeah,
take
Joe-
a 5-minute recess
So
and
y'all
give
can
y'all an
defer.
opportunity just to chat.
Thank you so
And
much.
we'll come back. All right, great. All right, we're back after a brief recess.
And thank you for the recess and the opportunity to discuss. We would like to go ahead and hear your vote, even if it's a deferment. And we do intend to come back with option one now that we've heard your comments on both.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So the motion was board deferral and restudy of a singular pathway option with board and staff comments and conditions.
I believe you said to identify one singular pathway,
Yes.
so right? All right, so the motion on the table that I heard was deferral for restudy to identify one singular pathway with board and staff comments and conditions.
That's correct.
I'll second that.
Motion by Brown. All right, Mr. Trent, how do you vote?
Yay in favor?
Mr. Brown?
Yay in favor.
Ms. Sobchak?
Nay.
Nay. Mr. White?
Yay in favor.
I'm also yay in favor. Okay, motion for deferral passes. Thank you.
It's been a few minutes. It's it.
Been here a long time too, because we've been longer than.
There's a lot that's changed about me through the course of these years. Good to see you there.
Mr. Chairman, are we ready for item number 6?
We are, sorry, I've taken a couple of minutes. Item number 6, please go ahead.
Is 245 Hughie Street. It is new construction in the historic corridor district. And they are requesting a final approval of the new hotel. Lawrence is going to show us the location. And then we're ready for our applicant presentation.
Good evening, my name is Steve Ramos, and I'm here on behalf of my clients, TMGOC, Mr. Sanju Patel and Ms. Jessica Reed. Here for final VAR, I was here approximately 4 months ago for preliminary. And it went well, and there was a few comments, and so I'm gonna kind of speed through, but just point to the handful of things that have been revised for everybody's sake. This was just the list of comments, and the ones in magenta are just a few that required some review. Staff asked me to bring physical samples to the final review. There was discussion about looking at some hierarchy with the window grid, some of the bigger windows, as well as some activation on the ground level. I had some arches that I took away, and maybe they should be brought back, was a question. But really just preliminary comments. These were the old renderings, just for reference. And then this is a comparison, very small revisions. In terms of Hughie Street, I did not bring back the additional arches, but we have added some additional entrances here and here. The lobby also has a cafe and a speakeasy bar. Plus there's a full service restaurant on the corner. So the addition of additional entrances, I think, helps activate the street. As well as we've added some additional awnings as well. So that's at the ground floor. And a little hard to see on here, but previously it's very rigorous with the grid with these windows. And I've just revised the second floor where we have the ballroom, have some larger expanses of glass and a little more hierarchy. And so that was to address board and staff comments. There are some other just small revisions that happen with any project. At the 8th level penthouse where we have a restaurant and club level, the facade was flat all the way across, but we had to pull out the 4 window bays at the center to allow for some circulation behind the elevator. So the facade has kind of a pop out right at the center. There's also a site wall that we added that I'll show you on one of the other renderings. So the new rendering is on top. the old rendering down below. Again, just some additional awnings, some additional doors here, revisions to the window mullions, level 2. And then there's this kind of centered pop out at level 8. And I'll just kind of take you on a tour around the building. And here you can see we just added a site wall at the south side of the property. It's best seen here. We've set the building back there to create an alley, and that alley is going to be used for some outdoor dining. And since we don't know when the adjacent site will be developed, having a wall to create some visual privacy is something that would be helpful. So that's the purpose of that site wall. Another minor change, we had some kind of niches where we didn't need some windows, but as we revised that 8th floor restaurant plan, we've just added windows all the way across, which I think is a nice improvement. No real discernible revisions to this side of the building. This is the view from the overpass. And I'll just kind of quickly go through the 2D drawings. This is the current site as it is today, but there is quite a bit of development that's been to this BAR that will kind of fill out this site in the future. This is the ground floor plan. Again, just some small revisions to the lobby. There's a speakeasy bar here. There's a coffee shop here. So we've added those additional doors. And then this is where we have outdoor dining as well as here. So you can see that's the site wall that we've added. And there's no revisions on the upper floors that have had an impact on the facade. I'm just gonna march through these. And then this is the 8th floor where we had to kind of pop out the facade there. That was so we could serve food from one side of the building to the other, so the kitchen staff can get around the elevator. So it just kind of helped with circulation at that level. That's just the roof plan. And these are just the precedents from the very first presentation. And then here are the 2D elevations. This is the pool deck, which there haven't been any changes to this level. And this is the streetscape elevation. The meeting streetscape. Materials, show. This is the main body brick that will be from anything above the water table. And it's kind of a mixture of a few different colors. It is a machine-made brick, but it has a tumbled look to it. And then the first 3.5 feet where we have the water table will be this color brick, which is actually one of the bricks that's in this mix. And then the window headers will all be this color as well.
Mr. Ramos, why don't you hand those to Mr. Transom so they can.
Sure. Thank you. This is a piece of cast stone that will be the window sills that occur within the brick portions of the building. And this is FRP, and this will occur at the sills of the stucco parts of the building. And it's a pretty good match to that cast stone. This is also a piece of FRP, but I really brought it to represent the color of the stucco. So the stucco is this kind of off-white color. It obviously has a sand finish. So the window sills are slightly darker than the stucco body. And these are just the building sections. And the details for the building, which are really largely unchanged from the previous meeting. So all of the brick detailing and stucco detailing is really the same as it was last time. There's just some additional details. This shows a lot of the brick cornice work. Some of the awnings and the railings. Canopy detail at the entrance. This shows some of the stucco work and the FRP cornices. Some of the metal detailing up at the 8th floor penthouse. And this shows the kind of outdoor dining areas at the ground floor. This will be the southwest corner of the building, as well as some details for the new site wall, the head detail and the pier detail. And that's the end. So I believe I've addressed a few comments that there were last time. I have to admit, when I was looking at the mullion pattern, I kept going back and forth whether I like the new one versus the old one, but I do think the bigger expanses of glass and the variation helps that corner building. But at this point, I'd like to ask for final BAR approval, and if there are any questions, I can answer those.
Any questions from the board?
The canopies, is it metal? What kind of metal?
Yes, the canopies at the entrance, those would be aluminum canopies, and then of course these are canvas awnings.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Any public comment on this one? All right, city staff comments and recommendations, please.
The applicant previously received preliminary approval by the board on November 12, 2025. At preliminary review, the board and staff asked the applicant to study the following: bring physical samples of key materials. It might benefit the project to have hierarchy within the taller window systems. And at the ground level, there was a change from arch to the flat top. The arches may be a better way to engage Hugie Street. In response to these comments, as Mr. Ramos has outlined, they have revised the ballroom windows at the corner to have hierarchy in the mullion pattern. And they have chose to engage Hugie Street with the introduction of awnings and additional entrances along the street. And staff support these particular changes. Unrelated to previous board and staff discussion, the applicant has made additional revisions, the aforementioned site wall in the southwest corner, and also the changes to level 8 with the central bays pushing out. Staff support these revisions as improvements to the overall project. Our conditions are really our boilerplate ones. The first one, the shorthand version is, if you want to make any changes, then you have to come back to the BAR. The second one is that whether it's during or after completion of construction, if there's a downgrade in the quality of the project, that has not been approved, and you would have to come back to the BAR and potentially make changes. Number 3, we are starting to do everywhere, no matter where you're located, which is about any work involving vibrations that might be a threat to either historic or new adjacent nearby structures. You need a program in place to address how these structures are going to be protected and monitored. And then finally, when you get ready to address the issue of signage, you would need to come back with a signage package for review. Staff recommendation is final approval with board and staff comments and conditions, with final review by staff of the 4 permit drawings.
Thank you so much. Any response?
No response. Thank you.
Great, thanks so much. All right, board discussion. Any comments on this one?
I guess I was the one that made comments at the last one, so I should just say I'm in support of the changes that have been made. I think that your revision to the mullion hierarchy, as well as I think better relating, also differentiates the brick mass and the taller element, and I think reinforces that, which is a positive benefit as well. And I think all the changes are in line with our comments. I don't know that I would have anything else to add.
Thank you so much. Happy to entertain a motion.
I will make a motion for final approval with board and staff comments and final review by staff and for permit drawings.
Okay. I've got a motion for final approval with board and staff comments and conditions with final review by staff of the 4 permanent drawings.
And I'll second.
All right. All right, so we've got proper motion. Mr. Schrader, how you vote?
Yay in favor?
Mr. Brown?
Yay in favor.
Ms. Subchuck?
Yay in favor.
Mr. White?
Stay in favor.
I'm also yay in favor. Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Rose. All right.
Do you want to get your samples before we?
Yeah. I'm getting good. Yeah. All right, that takes us to item number 7, 560 King Street. Mr. White is recusing. But we'll call Mr.
No, it's.
That's the next
No,
one.
it's the
actually.
next one.
It's,
My one off.
Yeah, it should be in this.
it'd be sorry. I mean, I'm happy to recuse on this too.
Yeah, no, we'll keep you. We like you.
Yep.
All right. All right, I had the wrong one. My apologies.
Fine. 560 King is in the Olden Historic District and they're requesting final approval of exterior signage. Lawrence is going to show us the location. And then we will be ready for applicant presentation.
Just like yesterday, we were just together, so thank you for having me. I wanted to say, just set the stage a little bit so you guys can remember what we did. We presented a sign that was quite a bit larger than that at the last meeting. And since that, we took all of your comments into consideration. We worked very well with Brad and with BD, and we submitted a package that's considerably different. But to set the table, I'll just kind of go through it. Previously, we presented a sign that was 9 feet wide and 68 feet 4 inches tall. And this board said it's entirely too big, and so did the bar. So we went back and forth with the many designs. And as you can imagine, prior to that, we had many designs that we had presented prior to that didn't even look like this. But through the council and the suggestions and all of that, and the collaborative effort with the bar, we ended up with this sign, which are halo letters. So the sign has not really changed much as far as how its structure is. In other words, the low line are reverse halo channel letters, and they are going to be very softly lit. We did an extensive case study throughout the city of all of the signs that are there and how they're lit and what they look like and sizes and such. And so being that this building, just to remind you, the allowable code says that we can have 646 square feet of signage based on 10% of the building. And we were at 614 before. Now we've reduced down to 150 square feet, which is about 25% of what we originally proposed. So that was one probably the biggest, largest consideration or comment you guys had was size. The second one was lighting, which I believe we worked out. Throughout the city, temperature of lighting ranges from 2,700 K all the way up to say 7,000, maybe 8,000. And just for context, lighting, a lower number like 2,700 Kelvin is a yellowish light. Anything higher is a kind of a white or almost in the blue temperature. So we proposed originally 6,500 K, and now we're half that down to 3,000 Kelvin, which is a very soft yellowish light, kind of like what you're seeing on the building there. And if I can fast forward through here, the building's located there, and you'll notice that it's set back 207 feet from King Street, which is a big concern of the hotel because we want people to be able to find the place. Wayfinding was a consideration or really a criteria that you guys had for us. And so here is how the sign sits on the building. There's an awning there that doesn't look as big in this front picture, but it's an awning, and which is why the sign height was a concern for us. And we originally wanted it level at the top, but the BAR requested it. We put it down lower, so we've done that. And here is both a day and a night view. And you'll notice that middle picture there, you can barely almost see the sign because the lighting from the elevator bay, when I say elevator bay, I mean the landing area outside the elevators, is quite a bit brighter even than the sign at 3,000 Kelvin, but it is visible there. And during the day, from that 207-foot setback, you can see it on the left picture there. And of course, the right picture is just existing condition, nothing there. So here's a detail of the sign. Going from 9 feet, we're now at 5 feet wide, and going from 68 feet forward, we're now at 30 feet tall. And the low line, again, you can see this top right here. We're at this 3000 Kelvin versus the wider white. Here's a detailed view. This is what the sign portion is, and this is what the wall is. So it's sorry, the wall is here. This is just a cabinet that houses the channel letter. And reason being is because this is an elevator bay. So we have to bring something there to run all that wiring and conceal those wires and then connect it. So that's pretty well it. Oh, that's your part. I won't go there. So we're asking for your consideration to accept this sign that we have collaborated well with them, and your final approval is what we're asking for.
Right, thank you so much. Any questions from the board of the applicant? I think we're in good shape now. All right, any public comment on this? All right, city staff comment and recommendations, please.
Sure. Our first slide of comments is just repeating the applicable zoning code and BAR policy statements that were the same ones that were shown last time. So they're just here for the meeting minutes in the public record, but I'm not going to read through them. On February 11, 2026, the previously proposed facade sign was denied due to its inappropriate height and scale relative to the visible building facade from King Street, as well as lack of clarification regarding illumination. The board did, however, express support for the overall design and typography. The revised proposal reduces the overall scale of the sign and lowers its placement, with the bottom of the sign now located 35.5 feet above grade. The proposed scale and placement better relate to the building facade and to the pedestrian and vehicular experience along King Street. The applicant now proposes halo-lit channel letters, right? All of that has sort of been explained in detail by the applicant, and staff find this level of illumination appropriate for identification and wayfinding purposes during nighttime hours. Staff conditions. The applicant shall request a final inspection during nighttime hours to allow staff to verify the appropriateness of the sign's illumination. And 2, a separate sign permit must be obtained prior to installation. The sign specifications submitted with the permit application shall match those approved by the board, and we recommend final approval of the exterior signage.
Thank you. Any response?
Just one question, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
I've never in my 33 years been asked to do a nighttime inspection, so I just wanted to ask clarity. Does that mean the inspector meets us on site at night and just checks it?
Correct. That's what we do for illuminated signage.
Okay, I love that.
Because if we come out during the day, we don't know how bright it is.
Totally down with that. That's great. Thank you very much. And I just want to state for this board, because Brad asked me this question. Once we put those LEDs in there, they're going to be factory certified LEDs at that temperature. And to change those out, or to, somebody asked me about a dimming question, things like that. Once they're in that sign and that thing's up, it's quite a task to take those out and change them, say, to something brighter or whiter, if you would. So that 3000 K, I think, is going to be something you're going to be very happy with, or the inspector will be. So thank you, that's it.
Thank you very much. All right, board discussion. Any real discussion further on this one? We just talked a bunch about it last time. A lot of changes from what we saw last time, for sure.
BD, can you confirm that per the drawing, it's 207 feet setback from the public right of way, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I
And
mean,
it's still readable, so at the size what we have now, so it's improvement.
yeah, there has been a substantial reduction in the size of this sign, and it is set remote back. And I do think the reverse halo letters are much, if they're going to be illuminated, is a preferable way to illuminate it. Be my comments.
Seems fine to me.
But they don't.
I'll make a motion for final approval of the exterior signage.
Do we need to include?
With board and staff comments and conditions.
Yeah. All right, so final approval of the exterior sign with board and staff comments and conditions. For a second.
I'll second that.
All right, Mr. how you vote?
Yay in favor.
Round,
Yay in favor.
so Chuck,
Yeah, in favor.
White,
Yeah.
also yay in favor. Motion passes. Thank you.
I don't know if it's appropriate, Sylvia, thank you very much all for your help and for your consideration.
Thank you.
Better outcome than last time.
All right,
Well, I'll come back.
now he can recuse. Yeah. Thank you, Jay. So we're at item number 8, 274 Calhoun Street.
Item number 8, 274 Calhoun Street is a category 1 structure from 1802 in the Olden Historic District. And they're requesting final approval for repairs and restoration of an existing fence. Lawrence is going to show us the location. And then we're ready for applicant presentation.
Great. My name is Adrienne Jacobson. I'm presenting on behalf of Glenn Hughes Architects. And I've spoken to Lawrence about this project. And I think we're all really excited to see the restoration of such a visible architectural element along Calhoun Street. And this is in front of the Anderson House at 274 Calhoun. So this is just site for reference. This is one of the historic homes that's owned by the Medical University. And it is basically right across from the modern Bank of America building. But it has had a lot of deferred maintenance. You'll see in a future historic photo how beautiful that it once was, and we hope to restore it to that condition. The horizontal rails are now wood. So this used to be completely iron fence, high detail. And some of the vertical components are even like painted PVC pipe. And the decorative work in the lower frieze, some of those are just pieces of plywood that have been patched in over time. There are still existing components. Luckily, the pedestrian gate maintains all the original elements, and it will be removed and conserved. But we are going to take the, this is just Sanborn map for reference, the fence is not on there. We're going to take the existing historic elements and cast in metal new components so that it will be replaced in kind. And the top spikes, so this is a before and after, and I counted up all the existing components and how many we need to completely restore the fence. Okay, so that's the historic photograph. There you go. On the upper left, and then a detail elevation of the pedestrian fence, as well as the top and bottom elements that we are going to recreate and put back into. So it's really just a full restoration of what's there to bring it back to its glory.
Awesome.
That's it.
Yeah, thank you so much. Any questions from the board? All right, any public comment? Yes.
Kate Utilities for Charleston Foundation, HCF appreciates MUSC's commitment to repairing and restoring this historic feature and supports approval of this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Being the only people in the room, I'm assuming no other public comment. All right, city staff comments and recommendations.
Because this is a category 1 structure, it is required to go to the board for review. The gate and fencing are unique character defining historic elements of the property and are cited by Jonathan Poston in his The Buildings of Charleston as, quote, Victorian cast iron, end quote, which would make them easily over 100 years old. The fencing is in very poor condition due to deferred maintenance and general neglect. And it is noted that many elements in the fencing have been replaced with other materials, most striking being wood and PVC. While the applicant and staff explored the use of possible substitute materials to replace large portions of the fencing per National Park Service Preservation Briefs 16 and 27, fortunately, a source to provide duplicates of the badly deteriorated material in kind for reconstruction has been located. The applicant desires to restore the gate and reconstruct fencing on either side of it. Due to the condition of the fencing, staff agree with this approach, which preserves critical existing material where possible and provides for an in-kind reconstruction solution. We have no conditions, and our recommendation is final approval with board and staff comments and conditions with final review of fencing element samples and 4 permit drawings by staff.
All right, thank you so much. Any response? Okay, great. Move into board discussion.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a motion for final approval and final review of fencing element samples and for-profit drawings by staff?
Okay, so their recommendation, final approval with board and staff comments and conditions with final review of fencing element samples and 4 permit drawings by staff.
That works for me.
All right. Subject seconds. All right. Franklin, how you vote?
Yay in favor.
Mr. Brown?
Yay in favor.
Ms. Sobchak?
Yeah.
And I'm also yay in favor. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. Make it easy. You try.
Just gotta take your time.
All right, so the city had some ARPA money to spend and had a deadline on it. So we went through a process where we hired New South Associates, a very respectable and known historic preservation group to update the architectural inventory. They focused on the areas, this is their map, so they focused on the areas south of Line. And their mission was to survey any non-rated or non-surveyed structures in that area. These are their numbers. I'm not going to go through all of them, but know that in the end, 1,585 resources were surveyed in that area, which is fantastic. And they made a series of recommendations based on the categories that you commonly see at these meetings, 1, 2, 3, or 4. They also made a series of recommendations as well as providing the ratings, which were given to all of you in that massive document, that staff have already scheduled a meeting with both HCF and Preservation Society to discuss our ability, because a lot of these are financially based, to pursue how we may collectively pursue some of the recommendations that were provided in addition to the survey itself. So we are now, one of the things we discovered, which was not necessarily known by upper administration at the time that the ARPA money happened, because I think not all of us have memorized the ordinance, which is that to actually implement the use of these newly rated structures, these additions to our inventory, both small and large, have to approve its use by the city, sort of like ACAs. But then what happens, unlike ACAs, is that it'll go to CD committee, planning commission, and then adoption by city council, because it will require an ordinance change. Because believe it or not, I have found it, and it lists every time we've done an inventory and who did it in the ordinance. BR Small, because they meet more often, already approved the update to the inventory on February 26, 2026. And I'm here requesting for you to also approve the update to the inventory so that we can move forward with the ordinance adoption process.
Thank you. Any questions? Not hearing any, then I make a motion to approve the use of the update to the architectural inventory.
I'll second that.
Ms. Trent, how do you vote?
Yay in favor.
Mr. Brown?
Yay in favor.
Subject. White?
Yay in favor.
I'm also yay in favor. All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
And I think we're done. So Brad.